morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Nairametrics Industry Outlook. It's themed How to Succeed in Nigeria's Real Estate in 2024. And of course, this is packaged by Nairametrics. We're going to look at the challenges and opportunities, of course, in a high cost environment that we are in right now and somewhat unstable. Often we hear real estate described as one of the safest and surest form of investment, a hedge against inflation. And I'm sure that if we open the floor right now, there'll be somebody who can package real estate in such a way that you would imagine that the sector is some island unaffected by, the tides and headwinds, right, that are flowing through the Nigerian economy right now. But we know that the sector has its challenges, and with the challenges, there are attendant opportunities. Nairametrics has done a great job putting together an amazing lineup of panelists, which I'll introduce in just a bit, who will be providing us insights on how players within the sector can navigate and succeed in the real estate sector in 2024. So once again, welcome. Thank you for being here. Be sure to share this webinar. Okay, there's a link to register and join. Be sure to share it with those around you, and make sure everyone benefits one way or the other. Again, this webinar is brought to you by Nairametrics and sponsored by ASA Development Company Limited. We'll hear more about them as we go along, but just a tidbit, ASA is a real estate company established to deliver a high standard of living, driven by better quality designs and valuable features. ASA Development Company presents its latest project, Helium Apartments and Boulevard, which is strategically positioned facing the green areas along the shorelines of the Lagos Lagoon in a medium density zone of Gracefield Island, which is a new world-class island at the end of Chevron Drive, Lekki. The project is currently in development and is scheduled to be delivered in 2 years. So you can begin your investment with ASA with an initial deposit of 20%. So we'll get to hear more about them as we go along. They are our sponsors for today's Industry Outlook. Now we're going to introduce our amazing lineup of panelists. George, I'm sure you're with me. For the record, I am Joanna Mustafa. I'll be moderating today's, I'm tempted to say spaces, but that's not, it's webinar, right? So yes, let's get into our lineup of guests for the day. George, are you there? Okay, so I'll be running through the profiles of Mr. Obinna Onunkwo, who is the CEO of Purple Real Estate Company, Jamila Fani, who is the Managing Director of M&E Kesa Limited, and Kehinde Ogundimu, who is the CEO of Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Company. And of course, we have Yoade, who is our Head of Strategy and Public Affairs here at Nairametrics. Let's begin with Mr. Obinna Onunkwo, who is the CEO of Purple Real Estate Company. He's a seasoned security specialist, boasting nearly 22 years of expertise in investment management. His diverse background encompasses investment banking, asset management, agri-commodity exports, equities research, and trading. Wow. Throughout his career, Obinna has taken on pivotal roles as a lead fund manager in various corporate actions. Presently, he serves as the founding managing partner and deputy CEO at Purple, driving the company's expansion in real estate and financial services. So, I mean, he's in a very good position to lend us of his wealth of experience and knowledge in the real estate sector, the opportunities and the challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Obinna Onunkwo. Moving on now, we also have Jamila Fani, George. Yes, she is the Managing Director of M&E Kesa Limited. She holds a bachelor's degree in building from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, a master's degree in construction management from the University of Lagos, with lots of training both locally and internationally, including Harvard Business School, Boston, and Lagos Business School. She began her career in construction as a planning engineer in Construction Kesa Limited, and now has over 18 years of experience in civil and MEPF construction planning, procurement, logistics, and general project management on both both operations and management level. She is a BIM enthusiast and a change leader. It's always exciting to, see a woman, head somewhat her industry in this way. And it'd be great to get from her wealth of experience. And again, happy International Women's Day, and perhaps ahead Mother's Day. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to have Jamila Fani with us. Moving on now, we have Kehinde Ogundimu, FCA, FCTI, and CFA, the Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Company. He's an accomplished professional with over 3 decades of corporate experience across the financial advisory, oil and gas, banking sectors in Africa and the United States. His leadership role as esteemed companies such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, Chevron, Pepco Energy Service, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Capital One Bank underscores his expertise. In 2015, he joined NMRC, which is Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Company, as the Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer, later assuming the CEO position in 2018. He's dedicated to fostering economic empowerment globally, particularly through his involvement in real estate finance and advocacy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Kehinde Ogundimu. It's great to have each and every single one of you in. If you're listening right now, you know that you're listening to the right set of people who will provide you a ton of insights into the Nigerian real estate industry, especially at a time like this. I'm going to hand over to our Head of Strategy and Public Affairs as he makes the opening presentation. You are there, Ime.
Good morning, Joanna. Thank you for using our panelists. Welcome, Mr. Gundimu, Mrs. Fani, and Obina. Thank you for honoring our invitation at Nairametrics. I'll just take about 5 to 10 minutes to give a general overview of the construction and real estate industry. And Joanna would continue with the panel sessions. George, are you ready? Could you share my screen or your screen? Thank you. Presentation mode, please. Hello, George, presentation mode. You know what? Let me just share my screen. Don't.
We can see it.
Okay, well, I can't read it properly because it's not presentation mode. George, are you there?
I'm here. I can see it. It's on presentation mode. We can't hear you.
It's not on presentation mode. It's just showing me enable editing. So presentation mode should give you the full what's it called? Can't see the numbers. Okay, take it to the next slide, please.
Is it showing that way, sir?
Okay.
Wadi, you're muted.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is the Nairametrics Industry Outlook for March 2024. Our focus is on real estate and construction sectors. We'll take a quick look at the facts within looking at the GDP and the contributions to the GDP and the real estate markets and construction as a whole, to give a background to what we're going to be discussing this morning. So Nigeria's real estate sector and construction accounts for only 7.01 trillion as at the end of 2023. When you look at the combined contribution to the economy, this is less than 10% of the GDP when you adjust it for inflation. Notably, the real estate sector alone is declining. You can consider that from different perspectives in terms of the challenges, but I know that there are huge opportunities, and it contributed only 4.28 trillion, which is about 5.6% of the 2023 GDP, compared to 4.9 trillion that it contributed in 2016, which was about 7.2 of the GDP. According to the NBS official statistics, there are suggestions that huge opportunities for real estate and construction is available to play a bigger role in the economy. For context, housing and associated construction expenditure reflects about 16% of the US GDP and 20% plus for China. Doubling Nigeria's real estate and construction sector contribution to 14 trillion will mean about 10% of Nigeria's GDP growth. That's a 7 trillion increase to 83.7 trillion before effects of economic transmission to other sectors. So if you look at the numbers on the screen, you would see that the construction sector contributed 3.7% in 2016 to the GDP. It's dropped by about 0.1 to 3.6% in 2023. And if you look at the real estate also, you see that it contributed about 7.2% in comparison to 5.6% in 2023 when you compare it to 2016. So there has been a decline in the sector in recent years in respect of the total loans that have come into the sector. This is despite an overall increase in loans and advances that are coming out from commercial banks, and it seems to be going into other places. What could be the challenges here? Is it because of the nature of real estate and construction that is not short term? When you look at a number of the indices of the banks, you would see that a lot of loans go into trading activities between 90, 180 days. And when you consider that in terms of real estate, you heard Joanna speak about our sponsors this morning and the project that they're working on, which is going to be a 24-month project. That is the development and bringing it to market. So some of those things are things that we need to be able to see the opportunities there in terms of what kind of funding structure do we have in Nigeria that will be available to the real estate and construction companies, and also to the consumers who want to invest in real estate. It amplifies the challenges because getting the required credit for sector expansion is difficult. I mentioned now, is it due to the medium to long term focus of real estate, because you can't build a house or build a road in 1 month. And so these are things that we need to talk about today and look at it from that context and see what opportunities are available in 2024 and beyond. We've also seen the price of a lot of inputs into real estate and construction go up. For instance, cement almost 200%. We're not even talking about the other things that contribute to it, the finishing, the tiles, the lighting, and all that. And then the rate of the continued increase in inflation rate is another challenge that the industry is facing, as well as the continued depreciation of the naira against the dollar. In all, if you look at this, there's been a huge reduction in the level of foreign capital inflow into construction. It has declined sharply. When you look at 2017 on this graph and what we see in 2023, there's technically no input of foreign capital, whether it's foreign portfolio or foreign direct investment into the construction and industry. Zero in 2021, zero in 2023, technically, rather than see billions of dollars coming to that sector. What we have are, well, a few hundreds of millions, and you can see the highest year between 2016 and 2023 in the last 7 years being 2017, and it just significantly dropped over time. From that context, I would hand over back to Joanna to start the panel discussion. Thank you for listening to me. My name is Wade Ahimie, and enjoy the session.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me turn off the echo. Thank you so much for that, Yuade. I mean, that was an excellent presentation. Just a little bit of, insight into what is happening in the real estate sector, and he gave us all the data that we pretty much needed. But of course, trust our panelists to give us more insights and more data and the way going forward in this particular industry. In case you're just joining us, this is Nairametrics Industry Outlook. We're focusing on the real estate sector. How can you, as a player in that industry, succeed in the year 2024? This webinar is going to be divided into 3 sessions, and of course there will be a Q&A segment where you can share your questions, and also you can make your contributions in the chat box. It's all down below, so just type away as your questions come up. Just type them in. We'll be sure to run through them towards the end and have our panelists attend to them. But yes, 3 sessions. First session, the current state of the real estate and construction. Second session, opportunities in real estate projects. Third session, the future trends and innovation. And of course, there's a Q&A session as well. We know that real estate is such a key sector, a mine of opportunities. Just for a bit of context, Yuade has provided us quite a lot though. We know that sector comprises less than 15% of Nigeria's GDP. Recent estimates suggest a residential housing deficit of 28 million units, which is a value of 10 trillion.
Sorry, everyone.
Can you hear her? Okay.
No, she's frozen. So it's just minor technicalities. She's coming back on now.
No problem.
while we wait for Joanna, I think I'll just come in and continue the session. Like she said, the first session would look at the current status of the real estate industry, while the second will be looking at what are the opportunities in the real estate projects, and then the third session will be looking at the future trends and innovations, considering the fact that we need to better understand how collaborations would work in the real estate sector. Let me start with Jamila. Good morning, madam. Great to have you on the Nairametrics Industry Outlook. The first question comes to you, and it's from the fact that when you look at it, you've been in construction for such a long time. From your perspective, what are the top 5 challenges that are preventing a buoyant real estate industry, such as the land laws or digitization of land banks, long-term financing versus short-term financing? Is it purchasing power? So what are those challenges that we see in that area?
Thank you very much, Wade, and good morning to everyone again. I think you have mentioned it all. I mean, the biggest issue that we're having in construction and real estate is mainly infrastructure. Because when the infrastructure is in place, every other thing seems to follow in line. But that could be seen as the biggest challenge that we're having. Because if we're having issues like the roads and the rails resolved, we're having ready access to materials, we're having ready access to our buyers, we're having, the lands are being opened, and we're able to access other places that are just being left fallow, then I can say that there will be a boom in this industry. Another area that we're looking at is long-term financing, which I think is something that you also mentioned. We are hardly able to get any long-term financing with single-digit interest rates at all. What we're able to get are mostly double digits, and we know that as inflation rises, so does the interest rates rises. And now, I mean, inflation right now is almost 27-28%, and we are just. In fact, when I looked at the statistics that you put out there and saw that there was barely 0% FDI to the construction sector, I was wondering whether I'm in the right sector. Maybe I should just drop this one and just move to entertainment. I'm sure there's much more money to be made there. But on a serious note, construction real estate hardly gets financing. So what we're left with is either getting private financiers, and that's usually come at a cutthroat, I'll say, interest, and that is something that is really affecting a boom within the sector, because it makes the end product so expensive that people are hardly ever able to afford it. We're looking at also issues like purchasing power. Purchasing power parity in Nigeria is pretty low. We have a very tiny middle class and a very growing lower class. There are more and more people going lower than moving higher. And of course, we know that the very upper class is the 1 to 1.5% of the economy. And in an economy where you do not have a booming middle class, people are hardly able to afford anything. And that way, standards are low. So many things are, just for them to be affordable, standards are reduced. Now, when it comes to issues like what we call low-cost housing, I think my senior brothers here in the real estate industry are going to tell us about low-cost housing, how low is that cost, and who is able to afford low cost housing. We know that that is an aberration in this economy, because access to, in fact, even access any kind of fund that would afford you a low cost housing is something that is really challenging. My fourth factor, affecting the economy would be the land laws. I think aside from Abuja and Lagos, we do not have many states that are improving on land laws and making lands, obtaining regulatory permits, just getting difficult, or even trying to see ways of digitizing their registry process. So that would also, give an ease if people are able to trace their lands, locate their lands, and ensure that, this will just reduce a whole lot of Omonile issues, a whole lot of encroachment issues, and all of that. And people are not, going to be left to start a project, and then halfway someone comes and says, "Oh, sorry, do you know that you're on my land?" And then it just becomes something that is quite time wasting, resource wasting, I'll say, in Nigeria. Lastly, of course, inflation, devaluation of the Nigerian naira. We know what has happened between 2019, 2020 till date. We've had issues like COVID. We've had the Ukrainian war. We've had an unprecedented weakening of the naira. The dollar has been gaining a weight over the naira in a very unprecedented way, and that is affecting everything, because we are such an import-dependent economy that we can hardly survive. When the dollar catches a cold, Nigeria coughs. So it's really very disheartening how this sector that actually has such a great potential to boost the economy is not really taken care of. And I think that this discussion that you are having is one that is going to ensure that we share ideas on how this industry can be boosted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Just staying with you. You spoke about sharing ideas and how we can better manage the industry. So can you share insights, a few, maybe one or two insights into how these issues are being managed in terms of are those in the construction and real estate industry speaking to the states, the legislatures in the states towards improving the land laws and making it easier? Because once you can get those things easier, then you can be rest assured that it should attract enough investment into that sector.
Yeah, love them or hate them, Lagos State has trailed the blaze when it comes to improving the infrastructure gap. The governor has just launched the Red Line, mass transit rail system, and then there has been rehabilitation of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which actually makes going to Ibadan right now a breeze. In the last 6 months to a year, we've had additional construction of Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which will also help reduce this gap within infrastructure, and also make access to create access to other locations. Digitizing of the land laws, like I said, Abuja has the EGIS. So I think Lagos also is working towards that, or they have done that. I did not really confirm that, but I'm sure that Abuja has that EGIS. And if other states can emulate that, then I'm sure that most of these issues that we're having can be reduced. There's also the issue of PENCOM. PENCOM has given approval for holders of their RSAs to access their funds to be able to pay for mortgages and all of that. If this process can be better simplified, and people are able to access these funds I think that will go a long way in getting in turning owners out of the working economy, the working force, rather than waiting till they have retired, and then that's when they are now able to access their savings to be able to buy a house. I mean, there's hardly any time for them to enjoy it at that time. So yeah, these are some of the things that are being put in place. There's an effort as well from the diaspora community. I know that most of the real estate companies have turned towards the diaspora to bring in funding for houses. Now, rather than Mr. A in Canada sending money to his brother in Nigeria to help build a house, when he comes back and then finds out that that house is non-existent, real estate companies are packaging themselves and going to groups of people and getting this funding from them to be able to execute. And that way it's even preserving the value of the funding, because this funding is coming in foreign exchange. It's coming in in foreign currency, and that way the value of that money is not affected by whatever exchange rates we have in Nigeria. I think efforts have also been observed by the CBN in stabilizing the exchange rates. I mean, we saw what they did 2 weeks ago, trying to peg the exchange rate at 1,400 or 1,350 thereabouts. I mean, it is high compared to this same time last year. That's about double what it was this time last year. This time last year, the dollar was about 650, 700. And now the CBN is pegging it at 1,004. At least that way it can temporarily stop the unwarranted increase, by speculators. And then we'll see what they can do further in stabilizing the dollar exchange rate. But for me, if that dollar exchange rate is not brought back down to 750, if not brought down to 750, where we were, or as promised, then I don't think that they have done a good job yet. So I'll just take a pause here and allow you move to the next analyst. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. Great points you made there. You spoke about the fact that diaspora funding, rather than coming through individuals, creating a market where whether it's the construction companies or the real estate development companies can have access to it through special funding and so on. Let me go to you, Obinna. Good morning. Thanks for joining the Nairametrics Industry Outlook that is taking an in-depth look into the real estate and construction business. You play in the development space. You've seen the rising cost of inputs, cement, sand, even finishing products for housing. We know that there is a 28 million units housing deficit across Nigeria, which could bring about 21 trillion in terms of investment. So for you, are there still opportunities in this real estate industry to pursue economic skills to drive down this unit cost? What kind of things do you think need to be put in place towards ensuring that?
Thanks for that question. I think, yes, there are opportunities in the real estate space. It's how you approach it. It's the fourth biggest sector in our economy if you put together construction and real estate together. So that's significant, right? What that means is that you cannot afford to ignore it from a policy point of view. Neither can you afford to ignore it from an investor point of view. You have to look at it on both sides. If you put it in context, if you recall 2009 when the Dubai real estate space collapsed, Abu Dhabi gave Dubai $20 billion to bail them out, because that sector was key to the revival of Dubai as an economy, right? China now is bailing out their space because a company collapsed. So, and that's because real estate all across the world is where you store wealth. Whatever wealth you create at the retail level, at the institutional level, is stored in real estate because they're long-term assets. Not like now where some of us are buying dollars and storing it in dollars, right? So real estate is where you keep the wealth. The challenge is that because it's long-term, a lot of the players and that ought to play are not looking at it as a long-term asset. They're looking at it from the short-term point of view. So there's a mismatch. And that's the fundamental, that's part of the problem, right? So when you have a mismatch, when you have, I mean, and to illustrate that point, if you go to FMDQ and look at data and see how many CPs have been issued over the past 5 years, compare that to how many corporate bonds that are more than 5 years have issued over the past 5 years, it just tells you the story. A lot of the banks and financial institutions are more interested in doing 90-day transactions, 1-year transactions to go out, right? But real estate, to build the mall alone, you can't build a mall in 1 year. 18 to 24 months, you are still at it. Meanwhile, the bank has given you money for 90 days. So there'll be a mismatch, right? So if we don't address that point, then you have a gap there. And to address that point, the focus should be on the people that ought to play in that space. Look at the pension funds. Less than 2% of the pension funds are invested in real estate. So the rest of 98% are invested in other assets that are not real estate. Meanwhile, pension fund players, they play in the annuity space. So just take a look at the long-term, view. And you look at all the big projects being done abroad. The pension fund players are also significant, players in that space. You look at the banks, right? It's good that we're hearing that Cardoso or Cardi, as some people call it, is now trying to come to the point where he's saying, we need to recapitalize them so that they need to have bigger impact and we need to see them addressed. So hopefully when that policy comes on board, the banks can be able to take a longer term play in supporting real estate players. And that's at the financing end. So you can see the mismatch here that has to be addressed. At the policy end, there's a reason why places like Lagos and Abuja are doing better real estate work compared to Sokoto and Enugu. It's simple. It's the policy you put in place around land, how you get the documents, how you tidy it up. And that has nothing to do with government investing. Note, Lagos State is tidying up their land issues, not that they are pouring more money into it. It's about policy and how you structure it. So if the guys in Jalingo and the guys in Warri and the guys in Oka do not put in place policy framework that makes sure that when you buy land, it's verifiable, you can go somewhere, search it, get it, you cannot catalyze real estate. Nobody's asking government to pour money into building houses. Put the policy framework in place, and people will bring their money to that. Because if I buy land in Oka and I want to place at the bank as collateral, right now they won't take it because they present what is Oka, what is Anambra title. You rather take Lagos or Abuja because the process of land issues are sorted out and it's transparent. That's on the policy side. Then on the infrastructure side, government also has a lot of work to do on the infrastructure side. We need to be, from data that last 2022, Nigeria is investing $150 billion annually to upgrade our infrastructure over the next 10 years. 150 billion. That's about 25% of the size of our GDP. That's a lot of money. But that infrastructure cuts across building railways, building roads, building highways that interconnect cities, providing low-cost housing through what Mr. Kehinde and guys are doing. It's a lot of money. But then how the government finances it is not necessarily by taking money from CBN and just throwing it there. It is the policy that you even put in place that you can even attract the capital you need to do it. And not like we don't have the institutions. We have the PPP frameworks that are covered by the BP and the likes. But if you do not follow up those policies, you cannot attract local money or foreign money to drive that space. And that's significant because that is the 4th biggest space in your economy. And it's also even more so because real estate is the 2nd largest employer in Nigeria across the value chain. Remember agriculture, real estate is the 2nd largest employer in Nigeria. From the guys that are molding the blocks to the guys that are carrying it on their head to even the indirect people that come around and they're selling for more money around the construction site. There's a whole lot of value going on there. So how you address it holistically, both from the private sector side and from the policy side, from the government side, can create that value, get people to put in money in real estate and store the value. And that will now solve the problem of pricing. Because if I build and I borrow money at 28%, of course, I'm going to put the price down there and make it higher. But the more people come on board to buy and the more the demand is there, then, pricing begins to moderate and you can have to play. So, to the point, there are opportunities there. Those opportunities are inside the challenges. Those challenges are what I've listed.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Obinna. I mean, quite a comprehensive breakdown there from what is happening or should be happening when it comes to financing, the policy end of things, and the follow-up that the infrastructure needs to do when these policies are made. But to take the conversation and discussion further, what is the current state of the discussion to deploy the economics of scale and drive down lower unit costs in Nigeria, perhaps when it comes to logistics, when it comes to bulk buying, instead of buying, a single cement bags, perhaps buying in a larger volume? What's the discussion like in that regard?
So there are two ways to look at that. It is a discussion when you're doing collaboration. It's not a discussion where you're like, at Purple, we can decide to meet Dangote and negotiate directly. We don't need to discuss with anybody. But if you have the small time players, for them to do that kind of negotiating power, they have to come together as a collective and have that conversation. What we've done on our end is to encourage the people in the middle and the lower side of the business to collaborate, right? To come together and work together to engage and be able to drive that economies of scale that people like us at our end are able to do on our own. What we are doing as Purple is, aside from bringing out new products, like what we're doing in fractions and bringing retail guys on board, we're also trying to engage the policy guys in terms of this is what we need to drive the industry forward at the policy end. And hopefully as we do that engagement and they come along, it will filter down, to everybody else. But to drive down pricing, you have to be a collective. And that collective, you can push it on your own if you're a big player. If you're a small player, you have to band together. And we will encourage the guys in the middle and the lower end. It's always advisable to come together, band together. And yes, in doing that, you may cut off the middle guys if they don't want to play ball and revise pricing down. But it's all with a view to delivering a product to the consumer that is affordable. And once you do that, there are other things that you can also do. You can also do shared services. A lot of times, few people that they will be on site. Once the site work's finished, what are you going to do with all those containers, all those excess labor you have? If you have a collaboration where you have somebody else next by building a 6-unit terrace house, and it's about to start, you can begin to align your workflow together in such a manner that before he takes off, some of those your excess capacity you have, you can move them to that site, right? And that will also lower your cost, because the cost of rebooking those items, those cardboard and or even storing them is at a cost. But if you're able to collaborate across project management, you can also have a shared services structure where you share those costs around, and that will also lead to lower prices, and you can transmit lower prices to the consumers.
All right, thank you for that. I mean, a lot of innovative thinking in that regard to drive costs down in that sector. Thank you, Mr. Obinna. He's the DCEO of Purple Real Estate Company. Let's come to Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu now, who is the CEO of Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Bank. We know that NMRC was established to provide an avenue for credit facilities. What's the current state of play with regards to Nigeria's refinancing real estate, and how is NMRC breaking financing barriers?
Thank you very much for that question. I must say I'm encouraged by my panelists. I think they've touched on some of the challenges that we have and all of that. So I'll just be latching on and speaking to the rest of the things. I think the biggest elephant in the room is always finance, even for construction, throughout the value chain. If you don't have the right financing, then you are in trouble. And that's where we come in at the tail end, unfortunately. By regulations, our regulators only permit us to refinance mortgages. So we cannot go down the value chain. We are talking to them to ensure that we're able to do that, so that this benefit that is at the bottom of the value chain can be transmitted to those that are upstream. But what we have done essentially is, the biggest barriers that was facing the industry, especially the mortgage industry, was tenor mismatch. People could not get the right amount of funding, because the source of funding and the use of funding, the channels did not match. That means the banks had very short-term funding, and so they could not extend out loans for more than 5 years. Since we came on board, that issue has been completely eliminated. Now, banks have the long-term funding that they need to originate long-term mortgages. So you can have mortgages as high as 20 years, 25 years, or even 30 years now because of NMRC. So I'll say that barrier has been broken. The other barrier that we are trying to break, because this thing is like an onion, so there are so many layers to it. It's not just one shot and then you are done. Was that we also noticed that a lot of Nigerians couldn't come up with the 20% equity down payment that is required when you want to get a mortgage. So if you want to buy a house for 100,000, just to make sure that you have commitment, people will ask you that you should pay 20,000 and then get a loan for the 80,000. A lot of people could not, and it's just not in Nigeria. Even in the US, it takes about 7 years for you to be able to save that 20% of your equity. Working with other stakeholders, we approached the PENCOM, which is the regulatory agency for pensions in Nigeria, that why can't people be given that opportunity to access 25% of whatever RSA balance that they have towards mortgages, you understand? So they're not taking it to buy a car, they're not taking it, but they're taking it to buy something that is essential and important for them. It took about a year or two, but now I can tell you that that process is now in place so that you can access 25% of your RSA balance and use it as down payment for house acquisition. We also noticed that the biggest elephant is interest rate, which I'll come to at the end, but before that is also the titling process, how long it takes, the cost of perfection, the iterations that you have to go through to do the same thing and all of that. So we developed the Model Mortgage and Foreclosure Law, which is a law that streamlines the entire process, makes it very clear and easy, and on the long run, cheaper rather for people to be able to do, so that you're able to get your permits timely, you're able to know what it will cost you and all of that. Because time is money in construction. If you have a day's delay, it's a big chunk of money. And I'm happy to report that a few states have passed that law, and some states are in the process of passing the law. So Kaduna was the first, Lagos has a version of it, Ogun State has passed the law, Nasarawa has passed it, Ekiti has passed it, and regulators, Central Bank of Nigeria is now going to be championing that. What we're doing is at an entity level now, so it's going to even gain more momentum. They want to do about 15 or 16 states at the same time. So if we're able to also remove that barrier, then it lowers cost of financing, because once there is a process for title registration, for foreclosure and all of that, creditors are more inclined to lend in that environment because they know that, okay, there's a path back for my money to come back and all of that. So we have also, I would say we are breaking that barrier. We have not fully broken it. We're broken in a few states, but we're hopefully going to break it in many more states, and then the other states will latch onto it. The biggest elephant in the room is interest rate. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about that, because it's a macro issue, but that needs structural adjustments everywhere. And I think this administration is beginning to look into that, and hopefully, yes, there's this spike now to 29%. It was actually 29.9 at the end of January. That's the inflation rate. Hopefully, it will come down. And long-term funding is tied to that. Because you also want to make sure that you have a real return on interest, or a real interest rate that is positive for an investor. So that's one challenge that we have not been able to surmount because it's beyond us. But we are also giving advice and to the policymakers on how that can be tackled. So I'll say yes, so many barriers, but we now have almost all the structures in place, from construction through, we're trying to now fine-tune the transmission mechanisms, to make sure that things flow smoothly, and then that there is no price gouging along the track, so that any benefit that is saved from this sector transmits to the other and all of that. And by the time we have the interest rate now fixed, I think most of the structures that we have in place should work better and smoothly and make it more affordable and available for Nigerians to get homes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, well said and a comprehensive answer there. It's commendable the work that's being done by the NMRC and also the legal framework that is in place to support that work. But what is required to facilitate the adequate sources of finance for real estate infrastructure gaps, such as the 28 million units of residential housing deficits that we mentioned earlier?
So one thing is, as I think Obinna mentioned it about the pension fund, we have huge resources there, but only about 2% has gone into real estate. And, of that 2%, most of them have even gone through to NMRC bonds that we issued. So they list us as agency bonds. But because the cost is so high and the purchasing power of Nigerians, the disposable income has been on the decrease, affordability is becoming even a bigger challenge than it was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. So we as an entity, for instance, we're looking at blending sources of financing, for instance, where you get maybe cheaper sources from DFIs, maybe in foreign currency, and then we are able to hedge the currency risk with some institutions in the country, so that we get something that is much more affordable to blend with whatever we get from the capital markets in Nigeria. So I think what we need there, is for government just to give guarantees, and say, okay, you're taking on this exposure, but to make the people comfortable. They don't have to give any money. And NMRC, for instance, has demonstrated for the last 10 years, we've made good on our obligations. We've issued bonds, we are paying regularly and all of that. So there'll be some criteria for government to come and say, okay, if you meet certain criteria, we will back you with guarantee. They're not giving up any money. They're not doing anything, but then it then allows for us to import other sources of fund. And then you have a blend of sources, a plethora of sources to be able to blend them and get something that is cheaper for the average Nigerian. So I think in a nutshell, maybe we just need guarantees, for us to expand the plethora of sources and then blend them to get something that is reasonable and affordable to Nigerians.
All right, thank you very much for that. And hopefully we do see the government step up and give that, guarantee or assurance that is needed to push the work forward. But thank you very much for that, Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu. In case you are just joining us, this is Nairametrics Industry Outlook, and we're focusing on the real estate sector. How can you succeed in the real estate sector in 2024? This webinar is packaged by Nairametrics and brought to you by ASA Development Limited, our sponsors for today. Thank you for being a part of it. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to drop them in the chat box and the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to attend to them towards the end. Our panelists have done a great work in highlighting some of the challenges in the sector, the current state of affairs, and how it's currently being addressed. But how can investors tap into the opportunities and generate returns? We're moving to the second session, opportunities in real estate. Within the space of 5 years, that's 2018 to 2023, we've witnessed the prevalence of residential estates, shopping malls, in spite of, evident market challenges. And I'm going to begin now with Mrs. Jamila Fani as we head into the second session. Do you expect Nigerian real estate to continue to be dominated by, residential estates and shopping malls, or do you see any sort of shift? Do you anticipate any shifts going forward?
Hi, Joanna. Yeah, in the wake of COVID, I think it was very evident that we had a huge healthcare gap on our hands. It was more of it was an emergency. I mean, COVID itself was an emergency, but then not having the facilities to be able to take care of the rising patients on a daily basis was quite and a thing to see at that time. So lately, I believe that there has been quite a notable emphasis on prioritizing, not just prioritizing and improving investment in healthcare. I know that in the sometimes within the last 4 weeks, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had announced new healthcare development across 10 locations. In the first instance, I think that the plan is to have, one such special healthcare facility in all 36 states. And there's 10 that is being run in the first instance. And then there has also been another increase as far as we are concerned in the construction of entertainment centers. Somehow entertainment center, I mean, there was I don't know if the other guys are aware, there was a comment by Burna Boy that there was no arena in Nigeria that could take the kind of crowd that he's able to pull. I don't know, maybe that is why there's a new 10,000 capacity entertainment theater in Lagos that is just about to be that has just been commissioned and about to be built. We're looking forward to seeing that. Maybe that will boost that sector itself, because most of our entertainers, when they go to locations like the O2 Arena, they actually get those places filled out. So we're going to see if that is going to happen when this arena is ready. There has also been a huge investment in manufacturing. I know that Construction Kaiser and M&E Kaiser ourselves, we have been involved in 2 of such within the last 4 years. One was a farmhouse, a farm storage, kind of, not a farmhouse, actually a farm storage, with silos and bunkers for grains. This was supposed to respond to the food security in Nigeria. So that facility was supposed to produce fertilizers and then grains. And then there's another one that we're currently doing. That one is for ethanol. It's an ethanol plant. It's 5,000 liter capacity ethanol plant in Edo State. And there's another one, an oil palm as well. An oil palm that is also on the rise right now in the eastern states. So I mean, manufacturing and healthcare. I'm sorry, I have a lot of background noise. I am bad. So I have, I'm sorry. So manufacturing, healthcare, entertainment, those are areas that are notably having increased investment. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Jamila Fani. So yes, you've highlighted healthcare, perhaps a shift from residential to healthcare, entertainment, manufacturing. So you've highlighted the types of projects that are emerging for 2024, looking ahead, the launching of the arena as well. But what can you anticipate in terms of expected rates of returns in this shifts and these new types of developments that are emerging?
Sorry, can you take that question again, please?
So, I mean, what can you anticipate in terms of the expected rate of returns for these, projects that are emerging? You highlighted healthcare, entertainment, manufacturing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. I can guarantee that the rate of returns is going to be pretty impressive. On the healthcare, we know how healthcare tourism has been a thing for places like India and Germany. And coincidentally, and in a very twisted way, we hear that people from such locations are actually looking towards coming to Nigeria, because suddenly, because of this Japa syndrome, Nigerian medical personnel have been put on the map, strategically put on the map, and everyone is, seeing how brilliant Nigerian medical personnel are. So rather than going to Nigerian medical personnel in areas where they're going to pay in hard currency, they are beginning to drift towards coming to Nigeria itself. Evercare is one of those such facilities that is taking such tourism, and I can tell you, I mean, I don't have their numbers, but I can bet that those numbers are going to be impressive. When it comes to manufacturing, products like ethanol are used across board. In fact, there was something that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the ethanol plant. Right now, there's a whole lot of sustainability that is built into such construction. So you find out that the raw material is used from the beginning, and there is a zero waste. Everything, all byproducts, actually put back into the construction, or is used in some very important way along the entire process. So Nigerians are also beginning to embrace sustainability and, you know, infuse such into their construction processes, engage sustainability, and begin to look towards naturally occurring materials in order to bring down the cost of final products. So that was one thing that I missed mentioning. And we're going back to the point, ethanol is we use ethanol for so many things, for body beauty products, medicines, for spirits, you know, when it comes to drinks and all of that. There's a whole lot that ethanol is used for. And when we have more plants that are producing this product, that means that the cost of importation is greatly reduced, and we are now having these items more affordable, as long as, of course, these products are produced to best international standards. So if we have that, I can bet you that the investors are going to go home smiling at the end of the day, because this is something that that would be eye candy to the market. You know, everyone will be ready to buy. NBC put out a notice in January that, you know, the cost of their beverages was going to be increased by such and such percent by, I think, January 19th. And there was a meme going around social media telling everyone to better drink all the Gulder that they could summon before that day, because after that time they might not be able to afford it. I mean, Nigerians, of course, with all the hardships, we have to put in a little bit of comedy into it, because that's the only way that we can take away some of our sorrows. When it comes to entertainment, there's a whole lot of renovation and construction in entertainment facilities. There's the National Theatre is being renovated now, and it's being renovated to a very high standard. I mean, I personally know the architect that is responsible for that job, the brilliant architect, and one that is very much involved in you know, museums and all of that. I can't wait to see what the end product is going to be. So National Theatre is going to be, we're expecting that National Theatre is going to have its lost glory. So the glory will be restored, and then we would enjoy that place. And of course, you know, Nigerians, we do not like to be bored. The moment that place is going to, the moment that place is put back in place, there's going to be a horde of traffic towards there. Just recently, it almost seems like I am advertising, but that's not the case really. It's just that is the information that I have. So just recently, Construction Kaiser has also completed the building of the John Randall Center for Yoruba Culture and History at Onikonde, opposite the National Museum. And I stand bold to say that that project is a beauty to behold. It is one of its kind in Nigeria, and it is already attracting international interest. There are so many people that are willing to invest. The BOT, it's being run by a BOT, and the moment that facility is open to the market, to customers, it's going to be a boost. It's going to be a boost, because that place is one of a kind. And there's also the MOA, The MOA is the Museum of West African Arts in Edo State right now, under construction as well. So entertainment, tourism, the arts, everything is kind of coming back gradually. And I'm sure that in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have a thriving economy, that thriving returns in those areas that are kind of salient. There are no more shopping malls, no more residences, but these other kind of facilities that are going to be more prevalent in the real estate sector. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Jamila Fani, the Managing Director of M&E KSA Limited. A lot was highlighted there, and we definitely look forward to seeing the returns on these investments being made in, infrastructure and real estate around healthcare, entertainment, and you can imagine what this will do for the Nigerian economy as well. So thank you for that. Moving on now, we're coming to Mr. Obinna Onuko. Lately, we've seen the emergence of new investment models such as fractional ownership with www.sellsmallsmall.com and so on and so forth. With your expertise in the market, right, what opportunities should ordinary Nigerians be on the lookout for in 2024 and beyond, right? Some insights that align with the goals and objectives of developers and communities.
Thanks for that question. I think that, well, there are two kinds of investors. There are the big investors that can afford to put billions, and that is the retail investors, right? Now, for the big investors, like Mr. Kende has spoken to, those institutional frameworks, etc., they have to be, they are focused on it because it dictates the investment policy and the direction they want to take. For the retail guys, it's more like what the market gives them that meets their needs, they will take. So what we've done on our end, our Purple end, is develop a product we call fractions. Now, what that enables, it enables people with as low as 10,000 naira, 5,000 naira to co-invest in assets that are worth billions of naira. Now, with that, what it does is that you begin to redirect the savings that's typically left in commercial banks for years into more productive uses that will yield higher returns than 5%. That's what we're doing on our end, right? And it's gained some traction in digital platform. So for the millennials that are savvy and they like things, it's obviously better than Binance because there are real assets that are backing it. So, and that I think is the direction that we should be going to, trying to provide alternative financing models that brings up the savings that are out there into longer term investments. And that's what we're working on. Now, the other thing we're also looking at, thankfully, to what Mrs. Jamila spoke to, is that the model that people should adopt going forward is to try and optimize the land. Gone are the days, in my view, where you're building one type of facility on a land that is 10,000 square meters. Like what we're doing on Purple Lekki is a multi-structure, right? So we're raising it up, we're raising it across board. So on the face of it, we're doing a digital billboard, right? That we went from Maryland. Within it, we're doing apart hotels. At the bottom, we're doing commercial. That way, you optimize the yield. And from optimizing the yield and diversifying the portfolio, you bring stability in the assets. And that also attracts your investors and keeps them happy. And on the other side, on the government side, we should also be willing to back big projects. If any of you know London, remember the Millennium Dome. Tony Blair almost got skinned for backing that project, even though it was not his project, it was John Major that brought it to board. But he backed it. Now, if you go to O2, guys that are going there doing shows, is now yielding serious money for them, right? So if we begin to see opportunities in all the sectors, every sector you mentioned in Nigeria, from agriculture to entertainment, they need a brick and mortar to execute whatever they're doing. That's real estate, right? Now, Burna Boy is not going to come and build the arena. Eco Hotel is almost booked out from every single event. Everybody goes to Eco Hotel by default. But we need much more Eco Hotels, right? We need much more of those facilities spread across the country. A state can decide that, for us, we're going to be the entertainment hub of Nigeria. and you build an entertainment center, you back it, provide the land, guys bring what do you call it, their investment into it, be supportive facilities, and boom, the economy takes off, driven by tourism, entertainment, right? That's for the entertainment space. If you come to agriculture space, if you begin to explore the issues around warehousing of perishables to prevent them from, that's a huge opportunity that nobody is even, tapping into. So every single sector of our economy needs real estate to back. So let's not just focus on the housing, because that's missing the big picture. Let's focus on the shelter or the structure that we need to put around entertainment. We need to put around agriculture. We need to put around even telecoms. At some point in telecom space, it didn't make sense owning a mast by yourself. They started co-locating. But then somebody has to put that infrastructure out for them to co-locate and provide the land, right? If you look at even the banking, does it make sense you spend all that money building a head office when you can afford somebody built and then you build as we stay over time? So there are lots of opportunities. So if we limit ourselves to just talking about housing and low-cost housing, even though they're important, we miss the greater picture and the bigger return profile that if we invest in over time, like Mr. Kennedy said, we'll bring out multiplicity of funds that you can now do the actual blending. Because for you to do the blending is a mix of new money and returns on existing money. If you open up that opportunity and open up, real estate space in where we start looking at the other sectors, then we can take the return profile of those existing monies back into the system and you blend it down. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for that breakdown, Mr. Obinna. Plethora of opportunities. We just hope that those opportunities are taken advantage of and also supported somewhat by the government in power. Mr. Obinna is the DC of Purple Real Estate Company. We're coming now to Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu. Sir, with your 3 decades worth of experience, from your understanding of funding structures within the real estate and construction market, what financing products does the Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Company have available for both development and acquisition purposes?
Thank you very much. Let me just make one statement. NMRC is a wholesale financier. So that people don't see us as if we deal with individuals on the retail end. So we finance banks. So I just wanted to put that out so that everyone is aware that we deal in the whole space business. As a result of that, our modus operandi is what I call reverse inquiry. So whatever product a bank wants to develop, they can run it by us, and then we give our blessings, and then it goes through, and then people can have it. So we have several products, that banks do on their own, some to rent, some for mortgages. But one that I want to talk about today, which I think, because I see one question on the chat about sustainable mortgage facilities and all of that and the cost. So what has happened in the last 3 months, another organization called the Family Homes Funds, which is like a sister organization to NMRC, has come up with a product which is called Help to Own. So what that product is essentially is a blend of some cheap funding from the African Development Bank with funding from NMRC, so that you now achieve a rate that is affordable, that is much, much lower than what you will get in the market. Permit me just to explain the product a little bit so that people can have an understanding. So let's say you need a loan for, you want to buy a house for 100 Naira. That product says you should bring 10 Naira. Then you will get 40 Naira from Family Homes Funds at a rate that starts at 3% and then graduates up over years. And then you get the remaining 50 Naira from NMRC at commercial rate. So essentially, the person has come up with his own 10 Naira as down payment. They get 40 Naira from Family Homes Funds at 3.5%. First 5 years, you don't even pay anything. And then as your salary increases and all of that, and then you get the remaining 50 from NMRC at commercial rate. Essentially, they have crashed interest rate for everybody by that product. You understand? Because instead of you getting 90, the whole 90 at commercial rate, you are getting 50 at commercial and 40 from family homes funds at a reduced rate. We even have interest moratorium for the first 5 years to go into that. I'm sure people can go to a FHF's website to just have an idea. So that's one product that I think people need to know about, that it's out there that will significantly reduce the interest burden or the mortgage burden on mortgagors. The other thing about that product, though, which I need to talk, is it has a cap. So if it's not for the extremely wealthy, I think the maximum is about 50 million or 35 million. So it's just to ensure that those who can play in the affordable space are able to get into that. So that's one product that we have. We have other products with different organizations. So I think most importantly, what people should do is go to the banks and say that we want an NMRC eligible mortgage product. You understand? And why I say that is because we're trying to achieve two things at NMRC. Number one is to ensure that when you take a product, you have fixed interest rates. You understand? So even when rates go up, MPR goes up, your rate does not go down. And then you also have the benefit of prepaying down without penalty at any time. So that when rates go down, you're also able to take opportunity and look for cheaper source of funding. So by that, we're saying that whatever rate you get into is the highest that you can ever get into. And when rates go down, you should be able to get another loan to pay that down and then move on to something that is much more affordable for you. So we all know that in an inflationary environment like we have now, the best thing is to get other people's money to execute your product. Because as rates move up, you are always going to be paying something that is cheaper than what ordinarily you would have paid if you were to use your own funding. So credit is a major avenue to acquire homes at cheaper price on the long run, especially in an inflationary environment. So we have so many products. Again, as I said, it depends on the banks because we don't deal with individuals directly. So you have to go to the bank and say, okay, what products do you have that is NMRC eligible? And then they will talk to you there. Maybe I'll stop there for now.
All right, thank you so much.
Sorry. Somebody said that I should say the name of the product again. It's Help to Own product from Family Homes Fund. Help to Own. So you can see it as H2O, like Waters H2O or HTO. Well, that's the name of the product. Sorry, I'm just responding to a question on the chat.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Kehinde. And I'm sure we'll get round to the Q&A segments after the final session. So if you do have more questions and comments, feel free to keep dropping them. We'll get round to it in just a moment. So we are done with the second session. It's quite interesting. And if you're just tuning in, you've missed a lot. This is Nairametrics Industry Outlook. We have been exploring the challenges and the opportunities in the real estate sector, especially this high cost environment, inflationary environments. How does one succeed in that environment? What are the challenges that need to be addressed? And also somewhat looking to the future, the way forward, right? And our panelists have done an impeccable job so far in giving us insight into all of that. We've had Mr. Obinna, the DCEO of Purple Real Estate Company. We've had Jamila Fani, the Managing Director of M&E KSA Limited, and Kehinde Ogundimu, the CEO of Nigeria Mortgage Finance Company. This webinar will be available on YouTube. If you're worried that you've missed anything or you want to, go back, it will be made available on YouTube. And today's webinar is sponsored by ASA Development Company Limited. There's a quick presentation, right? So we're welcoming you to the Helium Apartments and Boulevard, which is one of their latest projects where luxury meets convenience in the heart of Graceland Island. Picture this, right? 4 waterfront apartments boasting a vibrant array of amenities right at the street level, from shops to restaurants, ATM galleries to cafes, crèche to pharmacy, gym to laundromats. Helium has it all. So step outside to their pedestrian-friendly boulevard, where landscape sidewalks and outdoor seating areas invite you to relax and soak in the surroundings. It's accessible from both the street level and the rear, with resident parking available. Helium ensures convenience at every turn. And here's a kicker, right? Helium is proudly partnered with Gravitas Investment Limited, the visionary minds behind the Gracefield Island. It's strategically positioned along the green shoreline of the Lagos Lagoon. It offers a glimpse into the future of urban living in a medium density zone of Gracefield Island. A variety of living space, including 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, 3 bedroom apartments, maisonettes, townhouses, bedroom penthouse. There's something for everyone. So make sure that you reach out to them, contact them. I believe their contact details will be displayed on the screen, right? The project is currently in development and is scheduled to be delivered in 2 years. So you can begin your investment with ASA Development Company Limited with an initial deposit of 20%. You can call Chidima. I hope George is able to show the number, 0816-806-6968. So, ladies and gentlemen, our sponsors for today, ASA Development Company Limited, their latest project being the Helium Apartments and Boulevard. So, key into it, right? We're still staying in the real estate sector. I mean, there are some players, one of the players in the real estate sector that do have their bit to offer and play. We're going now to the final session before we delve into the Q&A. Remember, you can, drop your questions in the chat box. It's open. So let's play Madam Web. I don't know if anybody has seen that movie recently. An attempt to see into the future, right? The panelists have, shared insights, help on how to navigate the path ahead in real estate 2024 and beyond. But what are some of the future trends and innovations? We've had some of our, panelists, give us a tidbit, but they're always new and emerging trends that players in the sector have to align with, right? Changes have been unending. They've been occurring since, COVID, and even at a faster pace these days. So there's a need to align, right? Technology adoptions, remote work, most likely have affected demand for real estate. So we're going to begin again, ladies first, with Mrs. Jamila Fani. How do you perceive the impact of technological advancements on shaping real estate offerings, particularly in areas such as remote work, mitigating urban migration trends, and also reducing ownership costs?
Okay, let me start with the fact that we currently have a population of over 200 million. And about 70% of that population is 35 years and below. That is a staggering figure for any economy to deal with. I'm not quite sure. Thank God Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu is in the government, and maybe he can tell us what they plan to do for my younger ones, because that is quite a population. These guys, 35 and below, are quite upwardly mobile. They have seen their parents, their grandparents struggle through traffic, and they do not want any of that. These guys are upwardly mobile. They are impatient, and they just want what they want. They want to work. They want to live, they want to play within the same vicinity. They don't want any business with, having to be discomforted about anything. They just want to enjoy their life. So this trend is giving us an emergence, just sparking an emergence of studio apartments, short-term accommodations, high rises, where you have a limited space of land, but rather than going horizontal, we have to go vertical. I think Mr. Obinna talked about that earlier. So this demography is, or rather this trend is responding to this demography. And I think that any real estate developer that is keen into that demography is going to make a killing anytime, any day. And that now leads me to the next point, which is the working place. So we have a lot of people, because of this Japa syndrome, that are living in Nigeria but working in other economies. Some people, most people, I mean, there are lots of people that are resident here but work in the US or work in Europe, or any such economy. So having working locations where your home is not so okay for you to be able to set up a working space, having co-working locations where they just enter a space, pay for that space either for the day or for the week, or just whichever very short rent they can rent. Just have that space, do your job 247. Some of them are 247, some of them are open 247, some of them are open Mondays to Saturdays. Just have co-working locations. So this kind of flexible working has brought about the need for flexible working spaces. So there has been also, I believe, a trend of having all these co-working spaces has been on the rise in the last couple of years. Shared ownership as well, shared ownership of apartments. You find people from different backgrounds, different places owning an apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment. Each person has one room, pulling their funds together to share that space. It's something that is very, very, that would have been very weird in our parents' generation, because all that comes to their mind when they were thinking of ownership, home ownership, is to have their 60 by 60 plot of land and build their nice bungalow, have a space in front so that they can have parties when the mommy gives birth to the baby. They have a nice naming ceremony. That's what comes to what used to come to our parents' mind. But right now, all that has been revolutionized into this thinking of the teeming youth. So I mean those kind of trends are really coming up, and I think that having key real estate companies to key into that is very important. Then the last thing that I want to actually say regarding that trend, and this is more of a suggestion rather than something that is actually going on, because it is something that is going to happen very, very soon. You see, everything just seems to be located in the cosmopolitan areas: Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt. Meanwhile, Nigeria is 30. I mean, there's 32 other locations where things can happen, where land is cheaper, where there's access to the youth, because most of them leave those places to come to these 4 urban, or quote unquote urban areas. So if such development can also happen in those areas, that will also greatly reduce the population migration from those areas to Lagos and Abuja and whichever place. Because if they have areas that they believe are comfortable and are competing with this, whatever it is that they are coming to find in Lagos, I think that might also be something to look at. I don't know if Mr. Obinna would want to just set up one small committee. Let's go to Ekiti and set up something. Anyway, those are the points that I have regarding the trends that are coming based on technology that is coming in, and just generally the moving times. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Jamila. So a lot to look forward to and anticipate, and also to adapt to. I'm coming to Mr. Kehinde now, Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu. What innovations and collaborative approaches can we anticipate to address the areas in the industry, such as affordable housing and urban realization?
Affordability is a big challenge now, as we all have been saying since we started this discussion. So we are looking towards, what people call shared ownership, but now to be specific, tokenization. How can we use technology to be able to sort of divvy up existing structures so that people, because as the price of houses keep rising, the young people coming up can still not participate because it's expensive, but can you buy just a portion of a flat, a portion of a room or something? And so we have started talking with our partners on how do we bring in tokenization, for instance, into the market such that, sort of democratizes the process of acquiring homes. And then as it appreciates, maybe you can sell off and buy more, or buy off maybe your other co-owners and things like that. So we're looking at that aspect of the business. But more importantly, I think when we talk about urban renewal, it's now more of, I foresee a trend where you are now creating living ecosystems that fosters community. So it's not just about almost similar to akin to what Popul is doing. You have the houses, you have the malls, you're living close, you're working close, and things like that, such that it also helps with green sustainability, of the ecosystem itself. So that's a trend I see going forward, that then you have more intentional or deliberate attempts at creating living ecosystems that young people can have and can also own, you understand, through now using technology to, as I said, maybe tokenization or other forms of technologies that will allow you to democratize ownership. So I'm seeing technology disrupting this space more, but in a good way, because then you're not looking for the big boys with the big money to buy it, but even clusters of people can come together and own homes, and then they see appreciation. Because for now, at this moment, it's only the rich or a little well-to-do that can really participate and get the benefits of the opportunities in the real estate business. But if we bring in technologies that just makes it more democratic, I think others will come in. So I see that trend in the near future. And then also in terms of planning and urban renewal and the kind of things we need to do if you look at Yaba, we look at Joelegba and things like places that are closer to here, there's a lot of opportunities there just to develop those living ecosystems. Stop them.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I mean, we look forward to seeing players take advantage of, these opportunities within the industry and somewhat get affordable housing. You've talked about co-ownership and so on and so forth. So, I mean, hopefully these are opportunities that are tapped into and we see the growth in that sector. Finally, I'm coming to Mr. Obinna now. Considering the ongoing depletion, right, in the available talent pool, how do you view the impact of digital nomadism and remote work on the demand for real estate?
It makes it easier to go to Ekiti with Jamila. I think what digitalization does is, first of all, digitalization makes distribution easier, right? That's essentially what it does. Now, with digitalization, what that means that you can go to somewhere in the outskirts of Kaduna and you can set up a self-sustaining city that's not that big because everybody has access to the internet. And nobody has to bother about traveling down to Lagos to get new ideas or new innovation. The reason why Lagos is leading the innovation side of things is because essentially the airport is here. Every new idea lands into Lagos, and from MMA, from international airport, they enter VI, and they start distributing the ideas. With technology, you don't need that, right? You can open Google, do your Teams meeting, anything you can do it virtually. So technology is an enabler. So what would happen that anybody that leverages on technology and looks at it like the way we are looking at it at Popul, democratizing the infraction and etc., you should be able to use that to leapfrog your business and also for risk management and to predict the future. The second thing is that practitioners now need to start looking at what I'll call governance structures around us. In those days, you can one person that's a builder can say he's a real estate developer. We've gone beyond that, right? you have to have an accounting department. You have to have a retirement department. You have to have a HSC department. You have to have a board of advisors that advise you, on what to do. You have to have a department that engages government and just focuses on Lagos and again. So you have to look as if almost like you're building a commercial bank, right? If you do not see yourself from that point of view, you're not going to last in this space. You're going to be playing at the little leagues. But if you gradually begin to build that structure, that governance structure for the time where you have a board of advisors advising you, you can now begin to internalize a lot of the experiences you've had in the past, document them, make them policy, and prepare yourself for the way to go forward. The last thing that we also look at in terms of digital nomads is that those millennials, 35-year-old and younger, their way of thinking is different. So, I was at a wedding where the couple were dancing inside, and the music they were playing, all the old people were frowning their faces, but they don't come with those sense. They play the music and move where they're going. So their thinking is different, radically different. What that means is that if before you used to plan for a market that is not going to change in 5 years, everybody's behaving themselves, you need to now be planning for product innovation almost every 2 years. Because those guys can come up with new things. Right now, like Jamila said, people are here earning dollars, right? And their biggest investment in make sure they have at least 3 SIM cards that when one network is down, and they're logged in and they're working, legitimate work, right? The next stage is virtual reality, where you can, if you look at adverts of Meta, they are teaching people how to weld without having to be in a welding workshop by using virtual reality. Now, what that means is that if you are doing co-working, you can expand that young universe significantly, and all of us here will be in a room, and we can touch each other and be talking within VR. Now, if you're in real estate, you need to be thinking, okay, how do I transmit that? Can I even do that in terms of, okay, when people come, I don't have to build a model of a house to show them. And they can wear the VR and experience the house and walk around themselves. And somebody from there, and we can talk and ask questions in real time. So we need to start leveraging how tech can help us drive innovation, how tech can help us distinguish ourselves from other players in the space, distinguish ourselves as innovators and disruptors. And if we leverage that tech, and then that nomadism can turn into our competitive advantage across West Africa, across Africa. And that in itself can attract money to the space. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I mean, there's so much for players in the industry to align with, especially going forward if you're looking to survive, right, and succeed in the real estate sector 2024 and beyond. So many technological technology adoptions and so much more, and hopefully we see players harness these opportunities. Our time, I mean, 3 sessions down already. I'm actually surprised. It feels like there's still so much to talk about, but I guess it's because I'm enjoying the conversation. But yes, we're heading to the Q&A right now. And I'm going to stick with you, Mr. Obinna. We have this question in from Andrew Ajayi, and still in line with innovations, right? Must our real estate be brick and mortar, cement and cement blocks? I mean, I've seen, on social media and, on the internet, container houses, movable houses as well. There's so many, innovations around that. So does our climate not support the use of other materials besides, the cement and mortar formula?
Our climate supports the tropical climate, right? If you want to do use porta cabins or use containers, it's a very fast way of delivering a house, and it's as good as any other house, right? In fact, if you go to the UK, some of the houses there, aside from the brick on the outer wall, between your neighbor, if you hit the door very well, you can, like Marvel, you can even punch your hand through and see what happened on the other side. So we even spend more money building houses there than they are, because they've also, involved their system. If you look at what China did during COVID, those guys built a hospital in 72 hours. Who does that? If you look at the way Dolphin Estate was built, those are prefabs from the fence. All the houses are prefabs. So we also need to move away from a culture or that thing that if we do not put the brick and lay it 6 inches and everything, then the house is not properly built, right? There are innovations that we can apply and tech that we can apply to make things even move faster. The other day I was at the conference that Wema Board organized, we were speaking about red bricks and what we could do. So yes, there are innovations that we can apply to make things move faster. If we apply those innovations, it will also lead to a growth of another industry where people are building prefabs for sale for people to plug in and build houses. Okay, you can see somebody spend, and that in a way can also help the financing, because if you go to banks now, they're more willing to finance an already finished project than to finance a new project for a retail owner. But if you tell them that I have a prefab plan that I've finalized with a particular company and this is the house design, it's already designed, all the parts are fabbed, then what we are doing is, okay, we're financing you, therefore in the next 1 month, your house is up and ready. And those systems, they exist, especially in Southeast Asia. So we don't have to focus on the brick and mortar. We should focus on, anything that puts a roof over our head, that's compatible, that will deliver us. I mean, if people have towing vans at our houses and they just tow them across the road and we go, what more, that is. We should also focus on the soft infrastructure. We're building the hard. There's a universe of real estate that is digital, where people are selling coins, people are selling doors, people are selling. My kids have this thing, I forgot what they call it, the virtual game that they play, where you enter. If you want to buy clothes, you have to go and pay. I say, no, we're not going that one. I beg, play the game, come out, let's go and go to school. So there are digital universes where people are building houses digitally and they are selling things there. And some people have been doing NFTs around real estate stuff. So there are tons of stuff. So as much as we are looking at the hard things, we should open up our ideas to, because of the way cement prices are going now, look at other solutions that are out there that will also work. We should open up our ideas in how do we also build digital assets that can attract the people that typically invest in crypto to invest in digital assets that have linkages to the physical world.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Obinna. I don't know if we're ready for the conversation around digital real estate. But yeah, so many innovations going on that can be adopted, and I'm sure we'll be open to that going forward. This question I'd like to real quick direct at Mr. Kehinde. How sustainable is the mortgage facilities in the light of volatility in Nigerian economy, with the attendant rising cost of building materials, particularly in recent times? What mechanisms have been put in place to ensure mortgages have optimum benefits for the mortgage, all right? Mortgators, sorry, have optimum benefits for the mortgages. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I answered it partly when I was responding to some of the questions, but I think one thing I missed out was on the tax deductibility of mortgage interest. So when you take a mortgage and you are, part of the payments you are making is your principal, and then there's an interest element. That interest element is tax deductible. So it even has a tax benefit for you, such that you are you get some relief or some rebate in that. So there's tax deductibility, there's the appreciation in the housing themselves over time, which should beat inflation anytime. And then the various products that I talked about that's being available for individuals to approach banks and get for themselves. So tax advantages, a big one I missed out earlier on, but I think I should say that as well.
Thank you for clearing that up. There's a couple of other questions, but we have overshot our time a bit, but I'm sure our panelists will take time out to answer some of the questions in the chat box. It's been quite an interesting spaces, and I'm sure there's so much more to be talked about. A lot to look forward to. If you've been following the conversation, you would know that, and hopefully players in the sector align with all these developments. We want to say, well, maybe I'll leave you a day to, do the closing remarks, but a huge thank you to all our panelists for all the insight that was shared with us today. A huge thank you to our sponsors as well, ASA Development Company. And just a little bit more about them, a real estate company established to deliver a high standard of living driven by better quality designs and valuable features. Their latest project is Helium Apartments and Boulevard, which is strategically positioned facing the green area along the shoreline of the Lagos Lagoon in a medium density zone of Gracefield Island, which is a new world-class island at the end of Chevron Drive, Lekki. It's currently in development, this project, that is the Helium Apartment and Boulevard, currently in development and is scheduled to be delivered in 2 years. So you can begin your investment with ASA with an initial deposit of 20%. And if you're interested, call Chidima on 0816 806-6968. George has done the good work of displaying the details on the screen, so you can take that down real quick. I'm going to hand over to Wade Aime to give the closing remarks for today's webinar. Wade is our Head of Strategy and Public Affairs at Nairametrics.
Thank you, Joanna. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all our panelists. Mr. Kehinde Ogundimu, even at short notice, you honored us. Obinna Nwoko, thank you. You were the first person that told me you were going to get onto this panel. Jamila Fani, thank you very much. And also, I would like to thank your partner, Ibuan, for recommending you. Great session, great insights, and new knowledge that we've gained. Like Mr. Gundimu said, anything you do with mortgage is tax deductible, and which for me is something that a number of Nigerians don't know about. Which is something that is really interesting, that when you get a mortgage, the interest elements on it are tax deductible. Construction, E&M Kaiser for continually blazing the trail in construction. I've known you guys now for God knows how long, but you guys are doing a great work. Purple, thank you once again. I've always reached out to you and you've always answered us, and we're really appreciative of that. Let me also sell what we do at Nairametrics. We're a media outlet that helps investors better understand what the macroeconomic issues are, so that they can make better decisions in terms of investment. We're also high on financial literacy, which is why we have the industry outlook every month. This is a second in the series for this year. We had one last month on FMCG. This month we're talking about real estate and the huge opportunities that we've heard from all our panelists. We also will be having a masterclass where we talk about macroeconomic issues. So I'm also reaching out to my panelists to send some of their middle level, senior level management team to come listen, understand better the macroeconomic issues in terms of GDP, in terms of capital importation, in terms of inflation, and how this affects businesses in real estate, in all sectors of the economy. The session holds next week, Thursday and Friday, 14th and 15th. It costs 250,000 naira per person. So we'll be really appreciative if you send in a couple of your team members to come listen and get a better understanding of what Mr. Gundimu has said about the macroeconomic dynamics in terms of inflation, which Jamila has also reiterated in terms of inflation at 29.9%. How do you get a mortgage on that? And so on. Listen to our X Spaces on Tuesdays and
and Thursday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Follow the Nairametrics website, download our app on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store and the Apple iOS. It's been a pleasure listening to everyone. Thank you very much once again. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you, Joanna, for always being there and for a fantastic session as usual. Thank you, Mr. Kende Ogudimu. Thank you, Obina Onunko. Thank you, Jamila, and have a great weekend.
Thank
you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.